Welcome back to the Late Mode podcast. It's Giulia here. After a short break, we're back in full force, and from now on, we'll be bringing you a new episode every 2 weeks. After exploring the spirit of our age together with Marta, it became clear that the many stories we uncovered had something in common. Our guests were on a quest to find ways to keep doing what brought them meaning, or in other words, to sustain their practice. So I will now begin a new chapter exploring the many meanings of sustainable practices, from the materials we use, the role of our practices in our communities, to the practicalities of how to continue doing what we love. Sustainable practices is a broad topic, and here at Late Mode, we want to explore it through the lens of the individual, the community, and the environment. Within this approach, I have been interviewing many creators to uncover the journey of their practices. To deepen our understanding of this topic, we even have a new monthly show, the Late Mode Book Club. This show is hosted by Jack, the editor of this podcast, who has been working hard to find for you the many valuable lessons tucked away in the biographies of creators. Make sure to join us in the search for sustainable practices by following us on your favorite podcast player, and don't hesitate to get in touch through the contact in the show notes. So, today, we're talking to Diego Best. I've known Diego for many years, and I've witnessed his dedicated journey to sustain and grow his acting practice. I will now read you Diego's biography so you can have a better idea of who he is in his own words. Diego is an actor from Curaçao based in Amsterdam. He studied both computer science and anthropology, and out of those two, he still has a deep and abiding love for anthropology. These days, he mainly spends his time performing and thinking about theater. Follow him on Instagram at Diego Doesn't Sleep if you want to talk about anything, really, but especially the brilliance of Gina Rowlands, his current acting obsession. He loves his friends and probably loves you too. Thank you for listening in, and I hope you enjoyed the show.
Well, we are talking to Diego Best. I'm an actor. It's been a long journey to get there, to that point where I even am able to say that or willing to say that, where I feel like I can say that, which is a whole other discussion, I guess. Giving yourself permission to identify as something. Anyways, I'm an actor. I live in Amsterdam. I'm from Curaçao. I've been in the Netherlands for 18, going on 19 years, which is way longer than I ever thought I'd be here. But things being as they are right now, I'm fairly good in Amsterdam right now. It's a place where I'm able to pour all of my extra time and effort into doing what I love, what I'm passionate about.
What are you passionate about?
Well, my newest passion is the acting. I never really had like ambition or motivation in my life. I've been very lucky. I've been very fortunate in my life. I have a lot of things going for me. I have a lot of privileges. I have a lot of benefits from growing up how I did in Curaçao, and also just before the internet was a big thing, and going to university, going to like higher level education, getting it all paid by the Dutch government and all that. Those are all fantastic things, but I still had no motivation for it, because growing up, I was taught that, you go to kindergarten, you go to elementary school, you go to high school, you go to university, you do a bachelor's and then a master's, and then you work. And it's this little like career path, a little linear path you're supposed to follow. And it was something that never really fit me. And
so two things.
I'm bad at introducing myself, by the way.
No, I think this was a great introduction. But so how do you see then you say you found this passion for acting that came out of this idea where you couldn't fit within this pattern. So you had this push towards something, which is acting. How did you realize this? Well,
it's several things. Looking back now at my life, at all the things I've done, I'm like, obviously I should have gone for something creative long before this. But that realization comes when it comes. You can't force that. And if you have no examples around you, if you're not from an environment that's surrounded by or filled with artists or people who do something that's not an office job, not a stereotypically acceptable job, you don't know what's possible. You don't see what you can do. And so it took me a very long time of struggling to even be able to open my eyes to that. I did some modeling 15 years ago, some commercial acting. And what always stood out in those moments was I loved anytime any kind of little bit of creativity or acting was asked of me.
Yeah, so maybe the question is, why acting? So what did you find in acting that...
Shit. Why acting? I don't know. It's the only thing that feels right to me. It's hard to put in words the things that are emotionally important to you. It's an emotional connection I have with it. It feels correct when I'm on stage. I always love being on stage. I get very, very socially awkward around people that I don't know or small groups. And being on stage has always been a way of me sort of freeing myself from that. I always felt more comfortable in front of a group of people, an anonymous group of strangers maybe even, than a small group of people I don't know. Mm-hmm. And it always, I don't know, it always felt right.
But when you say that you were trying to look for creativity, what part of acting do you think, I don't know, liberates that side of you, or how?
Ooh. So I've always done something with my body. I've always been very physically active. I swam for a decade. I was a capoeira teacher for over a decade. And I've always thrown all my energy into that. Simultaneously, I've always felt I lacked something to throw my entire self into. Like the physical is one side and the intellectual, emotional is another side. And so I always felt like I was missing something. And acting is the thing for me that I can throw all my physical energy into, because acting is physically demanding. You have to really, really, it's not demanding in the way that a sport is, but it's a demanding of your body, the concentration, the control you need, the focus you have to hold for extended periods of time. That's a lot of what acting is. So that's a part where I can put the physical into it, but it's also so deep and rich that you can throw all your intellectual desires into it as well. I can read acting books, I can read plays, I can read about acting, I can read about actors, actresses. I can read about every aspect of it and fill my time with that and just go down a rabbit hole here, a rabbit hole there. It's like an endless, a barrel without an end. In Curacao, you say barising bom, which is a barrel without a bottom.
But it really sounds like that's really what you were supposed to do then. If you can just keep on going down without even questioning it.
I've never found something where I can throw all of myself into it and not feel like I've reached a point where I don't fit anymore. Mind you, the acting thing is pretty recent, so who's to say it's going to remain this way? But At this moment, I can't imagine it not being that.
So maybe what is interesting for our listeners in terms of, this idea of sustainable practices, what does it mean to have a practice and then to sustain it? So how do you actually keep going in doing the things that you feel they're right for you, even though at the beginning those things might be very difficult? So maybe we can discuss how was this journey actually, what motivated you to keep going, and what were the downsides or obstacles that you found along the way?
Most of my obstacles are unfortunately internal. So most of my obstacles I constantly carry with me. And most of my obstacles I run into over and over again, to some extent. I've never had a practice that I've been able to do sustainably before. I don't know if this is sustainable for me yet. It's taking the shape it's taking because the thing I keep falling back on is that now that I've found this, somehow all the hardships or the obstacles I encounter, they're still as hard as before, but the alternative is not doing it. And that doesn't feel like an alternative to me. This doesn't feel like something that I cannot engage with because it fits so well, or it feels like something that's so nourishing to me that I cannot stop myself from doing it, if that makes sense. And the things that help me most are trying to create like a little sense of community around it for myself. Not doing it by myself, not feeling like I'm alone in this.
Do you think that's an important part of sustaining something?
Yeah, community is everything. Anything that's sustainable is fed by outside energy as well, right? You can't just feed something by yourself. You can't sustain something on your own.
So even within the realm of acting, which is of course something very individual, you still think that a very big part of it is actually the community around that?
It can be. I've been trying to create that myself. So I went to a private acting school here in Amsterdam, and after graduating, it was just nothing. There was no alumni group. There's nothing afterwards. You're just like, okay, now here's your paper and you're done, and go figure it out. And it's such a shame that you have a place where so many people come together and are working towards the same goal, and often with a similar background, because you don't usually start like an idea of like a career change into acting or into the arts at an older age if you're not sure of it, if you're not like dissatisfied with something else. And so such a big group of like-minded people, it seemed a shame to me to just let that go. And so I've been trying to organize that, at least keeping like the idea alive that we're all together in this, that we're all, you know the saying that a rising tide lifts all boats?
Yeah.
I love that. And I believe that deeply. I believe that immensely, intrinsically.
For the big words.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, we're using big podcast words.
Yeah. But how did you get started, like practically with acting? Like, how did you encounter it? So you went from a feeling that this was the thing that you needed to do?
The very, very practical thing is, so I did one play 13 years ago, and I loved that. My focus was elsewhere, but I distinctly remember after my first performances of that play, saying to the director, I could do this every day of my life. I love this. I adore this. But then life takes over. Your focus is elsewhere. You don't notice that if you're focused on one specific road or route, you're not noticing like the door or the window opening on the side. That's maybe the place you should be headed for. And so it took me like 13 years, and then it took, unfortunately, COVID happening. It took every other distraction disappearing, every other seduction or distraction that Amsterdam has, that life can throw at you. It took all of that going away for me to be so depressed at home and feel at my lowest. And then my grandma got ill, and caring for her for a few months really, really like did a lot for me.
In which way?
I mean, it's really cliche to say it, but life is short. When you're confronted by like somebody's passing, life becomes, the little things become more important, and you start at least I started thinking about why I wasn't happy, why I was wasting my time not being happy. It's not for the money, obviously. I don't earn a lot of money right now. It's never been that. So why was I doing it? And I had no answer. I had no good answer. My answer was only, I don't know. Nothing else came up. And so I had to really figure out, after my grandma passed, I really had to figure out what is the thing that made me happy. And so I reached back to like that one night when I said I could do this every day of my life. And I figured I'll try that. And it's easy to think that something's for you until you try it. So I had to test it. I had to start a small workshop and see if it actually is something that I enjoy. But every moment I've done it has been a confirmation for me that it is the right road for me to be on.
Yeah. And you were just saying before that a lot of the obstacles that you found along the way are mostly internal, which I actually think this is common to anyone trying to do something for themselves and to kind of pursue a certain, pull that they have towards something they encounter first themselves, and like, how am I gonna keep going? But for you, what were those obstacles, and how do you feel like you're overcoming them or not overcoming them? Or is actually acting, so your practice, is it helping you overcome those blockages, for example?
So the acting is something you don't really do by yourself, but the preparation for it is. You have to learn your lines, you have to sit down, you have to read your things, you have to study it. And studying has just never really been my thing. I never succeeded greatly at academic pursuits because it's not for me. And that took a long time to realize that as well. A lot of years I just threw at that. So for me, the biggest struggle in acting, and it's going to be different for everybody else, the biggest struggle for me is the moments when I'm by myself. The moments where I have to motivate myself to spend a couple of hours and learn my lines, to struggle and go through that. Every time I have a new play, every moment, so a friend of mine, another actor, loves learning his lines. He adores the moment by himself, studying his lines, going through it and being like, okay, he says this, I say this. You know, it's fine. It's not my joy, like not the thing that sparks joy in me at all.
What is then the most joyful part?
Ooh, the most joyful part is being on stage with somebody and having a moment. Because acting is all about little moments. You create little moments. Each thing, each scene, each phrase, each dialogue is a moment. And you're trying to extend that moment. But once you create that moment, you can feel it. You're no longer two people on a stage talking or fighting or whatever. You are in your own little universe and there's nobody around you anymore. And all that exists is you and the other person on stage, or you and the other people on stage. And that's all that you're occupied by. And it feels incredible. It's something that I'm still coming to terms with how good it feels.
So actually, this makes me think about the topic that we have today, our little red thread, which I just informed you of just a few minutes ago, serendipity.
Yeah, serendipity.
Quite a funny word, actually. When I was thinking about it, I Googled it just to see where does this word come from, and I found this really funny story that it actually supposedly comes from the three princesses of Serendip, which were three princesses going around basically finding stuff out or like making discoveries, even though they were looking for nothing. So they will have these kind of adventures that were serendipitous. So yeah, what this moment that you were just describing, of course, is something that maybe you didn't know when you started acting, that these moments will come about, that this would really be the thing that, or maybe that's what brought you to say the first time I could do this every day was for that one moment, you know, that was created on stage. And I wonder if we can think of any other serendipitous facts or things that sort of came through your practice that you were not expecting.
I mean, every opportunity almost is serendipitous, right? It depends on how you look at it, I guess. Do coincidences exist, or do you like create opportunities and then things fall into place, those coincidences, if you want to call them that, fall into place? I don't know. I do believe that things can't happen if there's no space for them. If you don't work towards creating space for yourself and space for the things that are important to you in your life, you don't get opportunities like that because you can't take advantage of them. During my screenwriting class, I met the teacher, who is a very good friend of mine now, and she is an incredible writer, and she is winning awards for her screenplays and her short movie. She's just won another award for her short movie. I don't know, is that serendipity that I met her?
I don't know.
And she absolutely feeds my practice. She is a great inspiration to me. Another friend of mine I met is a costume designer, a fashion designer, and she works with a fantastic, genius puppeteer who I, at some point, am very likely to be working with because of meeting her and I'm meeting him. I don't know, what's serendipity? Is it just happenstance? Is it just coincidence?
No, but that's why I really like this story, because in the way that it was described, these three princesses are not looking for anything, but then all of these things kind of happen to them. And through that, they constantly make discoveries. And so what you're saying is also this idea of opening yourself up or making yourself ready to receive something or creating that space.
I don't believe that something happening to you is enough. I don't believe that just the happening is the thing that can change you or you can take advantage of it, or advantage is a big word. It can be nurturing to you in some way. It takes effort. Things take effort. Things don't, generally speaking, things don't fall in place just by themselves. I mean, you have to, open yourself to people if you want the right person to come in, right? You have to open yourself to different ways of thinking if you want the right opportunity for this and that to come in.
Yeah.
And I don't want to reduce it to opportunities for employment, because that's definitely not all it is. It's opportunities to create something.
Yeah, and I mean also you have to be open to also feel bad. Like in this creative journey, when you say you're encountering obstacles that maybe are internal obstacles that maybe you don't really want to deal with, but if you want to keep doing what you want to do, then you have to come to terms with them. You have to come to terms with the fact that they exist, and if you want to continue your practice or continue, meeting people and, I don't know, expand what you're doing, you also have to deal with that, right?
Absolutely. I keep encountering new obstacles because I keep overcoming the previous ones. There is no new obstacle if the previous one isn't gone for me. That's at least how it's worked so far for me. So on the one hand, I am obviously unhappy about obstacles. They're not my favorite thing, but they're necessary in a way, because they also mean that I keep moving on, that I keep overcoming other things, I keep growing, I keep
Okay, so for somebody who's listening right now and they're...
I'm sorry for being all over the place.
No, that's not at all why I interrupted you, but I wanted to...
No, I'm saying sorry to whoever's listening right now.
But let's say somebody's listening right now and they are on this edge of wanting to start something new, that they feel this pull towards, like you did.
Do it.
But then they find this, whatever, like they're sort of thinking, what are they talking about? What are these obstacles? Like, let's give maybe a concrete example of something that maybe you have experienced and then through time and also willingness you have overcome, and maybe can give an advice on somebody who wants to start now.
It's hard to choose something specific. If not because there haven't been any things specific, but because I've been working on arranging my life to fit this that I'm doing now for a long time. So it's not something that I started arranging just when I decided I wanted to try acting. I've been arranging my life so that financially I can just about afford to survive on a very basic income while maximizing the free time I can pour into things for myself. Okay, so this is a specific example.
Yes.
Ish. Specific-ish. It's never completely black or white. I have a very hard time choosing myself over other people or other things, and not putting myself to some extent, not first, but prioritizing my own growth, happiness, whichever part of yourself you want to work on, prioritizing that. And that I've been working for years to get to a point where I give myself the grace to allow me to choose for myself, to say, yes, today I am not productive financially because fuck that. I need a day for myself. I need to read this book. I need to go see a show. I need to listen to some music. I need to not just unwind or reset, but I need to feed myself in a way. Mm-hmm. I need to feed what's in me. So that has space to grow. And that took a long time for something to take root. I knew there was something there, but watering that, feeding that, took a long time before something popped. At some point I was worried nothing was gonna pop. I knew that my life as it wasn't what I wanted. And I knew I was arranging my life so that something else could fit there, but I didn't know what was fitting there yet. So for me, a big struggle was trusting myself was a big struggle. Mm-hmm. Trusting that what I felt was true and was right. And not the whole rat race, not the whole linear birth, school, work, death.
Yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, that's one of the biggest things I've learned in the last, decade, is trust myself. Stop doubting my instincts. Don't second guess yourself so much. And that's honestly been a very long road for me to do that.
I mean, in what you're saying is there is so much, I think, in general that we can talk about or look at the creative industry in ways talking about sustainability and practices, but how do you sustain yourself first as an individual? That's such an important part. It's something I have been thinking about a lot as well. Hearing so much of people burning out or so much of people not having enough time off, and then you're like, what is time off actually? Because that's basically what you're describing.
Off
recharge.
From what?
Yeah, off from what?
The framing of that is that your time is only on if you're putting your time into something for somebody else, if you're productive.
And for money, basically.
Yeah, if you're producing, your time is on. If you're not producing, your time is off. And fuck that. That's a load of shit. That's everything's wrong with that. And that's the kind of culture I'm also from. It's deprogramming yourself is hard and necessary. Deprogramming yourself is a sustainable practice. That will keep feeding you. If you start deprogramming yourself from shit, I don't know, capitalism.
Shit.
If you start working on uncoupling yourself from that idea that that your time isn't your own, that you're only worthwhile to society, to people, if you're producing something, deprogramming yourself from that is something that will sustain me forever.
It is a very fine balance, right? Talking about our own creative practices and this financial question, for example.
Eat.
You have to eat. And also there is a point in which you might want to start or stop doing side things and really focus on just one thing, which is your practice. You also maybe want to get paid for it. And so it becomes this also how to strike a balance between, not wanting to put so much monetary value on what you do, but yet focus on that thing solely.
I mean, it depends. I think it depends on why you're doing it. I don't think it's obviously not. The society we live in is one where you have to have a certain amount of money to survive every day, period. No matter how much you like it or don't, you need to be able to feed yourself, you need a roof over your head. But if you do it just for that reason, I don't think that's sustainable. Mm-hmm. I think that's just pouring like a coat of paint over the exact same like rat race you were in before. And so, yes, I also want to earn money with it but that's because I want to be able to do this full time. I want to pour the time I'm not spending on myself, I want to pour that into it as well.
So how are you striking this balance then?
Have you heard of quiet quitting?
No, I haven't. What is it?
I mean, boundaries are important. Boundaries are the way that I'm able to pour more and more of myself into my art. That means that maybe I don't go home thinking about a work problem and think about that all night and be like, oh, man, I'll be in tomorrow morning first thing to fix this or to look at this. Because companies don't love you. They can't give you anything back but financial support. And that's where it also ends for me.
So right now
only you love yourself. You can love community, you can love people, but companies don't. Companies just can't love you. They're not built for that. That's not how companies are built. They can't love you. And so you have to love yourself enough to say that, no, my time is, there's a line. I'm willing to invest this into this company and get back, a roof and food. And that's where that line is
So
for me.
right now you're talking about your side job that you do on the side to acting. So you're saying that you drew a line in which you're very much aware of how much time you're putting into something that in the end doesn't give you, it gives you money back, but then you don't want to spend more time than it is necessary.
No, I've been very fortunate with my job. I'm not going to lie. I'm very fortunate that I have a job where I have a lot of flexibility. But whereas before I was doing the acting, it was nice to be able to choose which day to work, to be able to say, okay, I'll come in at this time or something like that. Now, what I want is all of that to be in its own little compartment and to not bother me the moment my mind is on something else. And I mean, I don't know. They just have to deal with that.
And so what's next? Like, how are you progressing on this journey?
Giulia, I don't know. What's next?
Well, could be what is next week.
Well, I mean, I have a play next month. I have a play in 2 months. I have a play in March. I'll probably have something somewhere beginning of next year as well. I'm very busy. I keep busy. I'm very fortunate that I've had a lot of opportunities from the acting because, I put a lot into it. I've been very lucky that I got a lot back. But what's next? I mean, what's next? More rehearsals, more working on my craft, more thinking about it, more looking at the world around me with different eyes and seeing how I can translate that into what I do. That hasn't happened for me yet. I've not been able to incorporate my ideological views or my morals or my ethics or my politics into my art yet.
This is something you would like to do?
I would, yes. It's important to me.
Can you see ways in which acting can accommodate for that?
I mean, well, yeah. For example, I played a Shakespeare play in August. And one of the things I like to do is I have a very, I'm very heteronormatively good looking. And what I really enjoy is subverting those expectations people have when they see me. For example, and it's a small thing, playing a female part on stage is very fun for me to do because people don't always expect it from me. And those kind of small things. I mean, everything you do in a way is political, right? The personal is political. And so everything you do on stage is also political. Choosing to do something or choosing not to do something is also that. And in a bigger sense, obviously you can do plays that have a specific ideological bent or a specific political message, but every small thing you do on stage can be a political choice.
Well, that's precisely why I asked you, because one could say that acting a script that has been written by somebody else is, well, how do you turn that into your own, let's say, moral political message? You can't really, because it's already written. But what you're saying is that there are also maybe simpler things that you can do on stage through which you can sort of bring forth a certain message.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the same with everything, right? Mm-hmm. Everything. You can have small political statement. You can put a button like a pin on your coat and be like, this is my political statement. Or you can go out marching with flags and banners. That's also a political statement. The one is no less political than the other. One is louder than the other. And for acting, it's the same. I mean, that I play a woman on stage in a dress, it's not a big deal. But everybody who saw that, I don't know, maybe they change their mind about something. Maybe they look at something with a different eye. Maybe it opens the perspective. But that's something you can do in everything in your life.
So would you say that
Art is no different than life in that. Art is not special in any way. Art is just like a sort of, how do you say, like a concentrated expression of what life can be, I think. Mm-hmm. I think that's the amazing power of art. You can condense like a thought or a feeling and make it more universal in a way. Because art is pretty universal. Art can touch people from any age, any race, any ethnicity, any gender. Art can touch you. And that's really special about art. But that's because life is special.
So we're essentially talking about life.
It's so cliche to say, but yeah. I always fall back on like these really broad things because I do believe that.
Yeah.
My beliefs really are built from these little like things that I believe are true. But if small things you believe are true are always true, then they're true in every situation. They're true in every interaction you have. If you believe that something is special, and it's special always, it's no more special or less special if you're at the dentist than you are if you're on stage.
Could feel pretty unspecial at the dentist when you're in pain. No, I'm kidding.
No, but I mean, what I'm saying is it's equally special at a dentist or on stage.
Yeah.
If you believe something is true, if you believe, if you believe art's important, if you believe people are equal, if you believe gender is unimportant, if you believe race is not true, if you believe a million things, if you take that belief and you extrapolate it to everything else, your entire world changes around you. Your perspective on everything changes if one of those core beliefs change. And I try to carry those core beliefs with me into everything I do.
Well,
so it informs everything I do. Even if you have a play written by somebody else, you'll carry that into how you play something. You carry that into how you say the words. Because the words are just words by themselves. The character lives in you. You bring that to life. And you can't bring it to life without yourself. You're not imitating somebody or you're not inventing someone. Yeah. You're finding it in yourself. And so it's always translated through your own experiences, through your own point of view. And so it always carries that point of view with it, that perspective with it.
So maybe we have found a serendipitous answer today to the very first question that I asked you, why acting? And I think by listening to you right now, I was thinking, but of course, that maybe that was the thing that kind of pulled you there in the beginning, this practice in a way that allows to bring, for example, the belief in something being special, and you can then condense it through your own body, through your way of being on stage, and then transmit it outwards as well. So yeah, I just answered that question for you, Diego. It's fine.
Well, Giulia, you're welcome.
But what more can we say about serendipity? It is kind of a strange concept to start this new season with, because in a way, yeah, it is this chance, but also a lot of what we're talking about is creating possibilities for yourself, but also allowing chance to happen in your life, which is, again, a sort of, you need to make an action for it, right? You need to create that path, or you need to make sure that you take care of yourself and your needs in order for that path to show itself to you.
I mean, there's things like, speaking something into the universe, right? Or there's things like vision boards and stuff like that. And that kind of stuff, to me, works because you are actively engaging with it. By creating a mood board, by creating a vision board, you're actively engaging with an idea or with a hope or a fantasy or a dream you have. And that creates the possibility for that dream to fit into your life. You probably don't go out of your way creating a vision board for something that's, I mean, you can create a vision board for being on Mars, but that's not something that you're actively engaging with. Right? And so I don't believe in pure coincidence. I don't think I believe in pure serendipity. I don't believe in pure happenstance. I absolutely believe that you create a little negative space for a puzzle piece to fall into.
No, I think I also agree with that. I think that, of course, it's very easy for us to believe that all the people who are out there doing things that they love doing is because they had the chance to do them. But most likely they were also working hard at some, well, maybe not everyone. I mean, I know that, of course, there are
exceptions.
Yeah.
Obviously. There is the person who's walking on the street and is seen like by an agent or a director, like, I want you. And then they're making however much money and getting all the projects they want. That's definitely possible. The world is gigantic. But odds are that's not going to happen to me. That's not going to happen to you.
Yeah.
That might not happen to anybody who's listening to this right now. And so I think it's much more powerful to say that you are able to create that space yourself. You don't have to wait for somebody else to do it. You can create that space in your own life. Creating that space also fills it with the people who can help you along the way. Something that I always read or heard is that if you see somebody you idolize or see somebody you admire and you want to work with them, collaborate with them, there is no real point in asking them for that, because when you are in a place where you're able to collaborate with them, that will be made possible for you. That opportunity will appear. There will be a path for you to do that once you're at a place where you can collaborate with them. You can't force something like that. All you can do is work on your side of it and help other people work on their side of it. And if somebody else gets an opportunity before you, that's fantastic. That's good. That's amazing to help somebody else achieve something. And their achieving something will help you as well, because that rising tide lifts all boats. There you go again, like a small thing. If you believe that in one small place, you believe that in everything. And so there's no moment when you're not trying to lift up people around you, because it lifts you up as well. And that's what makes that sustainable, because the one thing helps the other thing, and it's all connected. And that makes it possible.
So we got the community that we were talking about at the beginning.
I believe with all my heart that is crucial to everything.
Yeah. Well, I think that there is no better way to start this season of podcast than having this message sort of put forward in a way that, believing in the power of your own beliefs, essentially, that, you can begin a journey by sharing with others, then things will kind of lift your boat as well. I love this idea. Thank you, Diego. This was really great. I now would ask you if you could synthesize our talk into another topic for someone else that you don't know. And don't worry, it's very normal. People get very, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to, what? I don't know, topic.
Well, the thing that's on my mind nonstop, but that's been on my mind before we started talking, is resistance. But that doesn't apply directly to what we spoke about, I don't think.
It doesn't matter. And why resistance?
Oh, because the world's going to hell.
Yeah.
And free Palestine. That's why resistance. My job just told me I'm not allowed to have this flag on my face at work.
By the way, for obviously people cannot see it,
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah.
Diego has a flag on his face.
I have a small Palestinian flag I draw on my face whenever I leave my house these days. And I work in a hotel. I don't have a customer-facing like a side job, but still, apparently some guests complained that they don't know. The words were very specific. They don't understand how they can feel welcome with somebody with a Palestinian flag on their face working at that hotel. And that is reprehensible to me. And so my entire day has been me sort of like thinking about how to resist that and how to...
To resist what?
How to resist just giving in to that. How to resist the sort of narrative that it's an evil thing to have a Palestinian flag on your face or to support Palestine.
But,
and so that's something that I'm really thinking about a lot.
But by the same token, of course, this woman might be saying the same
I don't know
thing.
if it was a woman or not.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said
I have
it was
no
a
idea.
woman.
No, it's a guest.
Just a guest. By the same token, this guest could, well, he or she was just also expressing their own view on things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important when it comes to these conversations that we don't also close ourselves to the fact that there are people that are always going to have other opinions. And how do we resist that, or do we embrace that?
I don't resist people having different opinions. What I'm resisting is my employer trying to silence me from expressing myself.
Yeah.
That's the part that I'm struggling with. I know there's people who don't agree with what I think. And I think that's all the more reason why there has to be more of a voice saying it.
So that you're advocating for just the freedom of expressing what you think you want to express within the workplace, for example?
I guess. I mean, in 2020, I was wearing a Black Lives Matter face mask. I never heard anything about that. And now it's I don't know. It's the hypocrisy of it that I have a trouble that's bothering me. That's getting me a little bit has me preoccupied. And of course, if I want to lose my job over this or not, to what extent am I wanting to take this? Mm-hmm. I don't know. But so wait, word.
But we got it. It's resistance, no?
Okay.
That's the word you said, and
yeah.
I think there's always been this rule over the episodes where it's like the first word that the guest says, because people then often try to change it, or maybe, oh no, maybe I didn't mean it this way. But I think it's nice when it's nice and spontaneous and it sort of comes from a very direct experience, which I'm very sorry you had to go through at your job. And I hope you will manage to at least find out for yourself, how do you want to position yourself within this, like which kind of steps you want to take, because it is not an easy thing. I think it's sort of embedded into so many different things. It's not just about having the Palestinian flag. It's about also freedom within, well, to basically express your opinions. And I think right now we are in the middle of a lot of opinions and a lot of ways to try to, like, aggressive ways for people to sort of say, no, this is the right opinion, this is the truth, and this is what is happening. And the reality is that we only have our own little individual lives to know what the reality is. That is kind of true to ourselves.
Yeah. And tomorrow morning I have to look myself in the mirror when I get up. And I want to be able to look myself in the face and be, I don't know. It's all really complicated.
Yeah.
But I don't want to shrink from my own beliefs. And I'm not sure what shape it's going to take yet.
Well, I think, as you were saying before, it is a journey, and it's the same as a creative journey that we were describing, where from whatever you put forward, you do it in a way that is like you. So that then everything else takes shape from that. And then it's about accepting that part of you has gone into there and then has created a sort of path because you're staying true to yourself. So maybe we should leave on that note, which I think it's, we could be talking a lot more about this only.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And then we will record another 2 hours of conversation. But thank you so much. I think it's a very, very great way to kickstart this series of conversations. We spoke a lot about what is really, I think, central to this podcast. Like, how do we basically keep doing what we love doing and the challenges of that as well. So thank you for sharing very openly how you went about it as well.
You're very welcome, Giulia. It was a pleasure talking to you about it.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.